Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza and Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hey, we're back.
Oh my gosh. I have been so excited about this episode. You have no idea. I think it's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hilarious too. Actually, when Cami and I were typing up our notes for this, we do everything in a shared Google Doc, and we're both furiously typing on it at the same time and laughing because we realized that we have very different connotations of the word artist and entrepreneur and which one of us thinks what. And I'm just excited to dive in and talk about this.
I know. And honestly, this is such a great thought-provoking question. And I think sometimes even my own opinion of it changes. Some days I'm the artist and some days I'm the entrepreneur. And so now I've been way too inside my head about this. So it's going to be a lot of hodgepodge thoughts coming from this end of the mic. So
it's okay. I think now I'm all confused too because I'm reading your notes. I'm oh, but that's a really good point. I didn't think of that.
I think we've convinced each other to think the opposites.
Well, a lot of it has to do, first of all, with how he grew up. That's such a big part of it. My dad was an entrepreneur, but not in a creative field, not artistic. But Cami's dad was an entrepreneur and an artist. So, I mean, that's where a lot of it comes from, I feel like.
Yeah. My dad's a watercolor artist. I don't know if you guys know this, but my dad's full-time job all his life was being an artist. So we have an art gallery in Tennessee. My mom pretty much runs the business side of things. So I would almost consider her the entrepreneur. And my dad is the creative artist, talent person behind all the beautiful paintings. So the word artist is almost this very famous line to me. I feel there's this really cool glamour element that comes with it. So yeah. But anyway, we'll get back into what I think more about it. But
yeah, big shout out to Pop. We love Pop. I mean, obviously he's Cami's dad, but I love him too.
Oh, he's just the freaking best. So we should definitely have him on an episode. It'd be great.
That would be really fun. I would love to do that. I'm very excited for his birthday.
I know. Birthday party is happening. So anyway, okay. So Elisabeth, do you identify more as an artist or an entrepreneur?
Thanks for the great question, Cami.
Oh, you're so welcome. I know you weren't expecting that.
We're so bad at being formal, guys. Honestly. Wow, that was not a great way to start the sentence. I kind of think of myself as an entrepreneur first and foremost. I really started thinking about this a couple months ago when I was creating the art for an invitation suite. And I love creating the art for invitation suites. But I create art as a means for making money. I was kind of thinking about it and I was I'm not very good at creating art for myself. I never identified with the word artist. I'm I'm an entrepreneur because I'm have my own business. I'm here to make money and I use art as a means to make money, I guess.
Right.
Which is very strange. It's very strange actually because I'm motivated by that element of it, I think, to create art, which is the opposite for a lot of people. And I would say that you would agree with this too when you talk about your point of view, is that when you identify as an artist first, it can feel very draining for the entrepreneurship part to be thrown in there.
Right.
And so mine's always been backwards, which I would say I am not the norm. I don't think that I'm the norm. Who knows? Maybe people will listen to this and they'll be I totally know.
We'll find out what people think. We'll post something about it. So.
But the connotation of artist for me always seems so wrought with a lot of toil, work, or unsuccess. Or, you think of Van Gogh, who died before he was famous, or just a lot of artists that died before they were famous. And obviously things were different, very different,
right.
During their era. You don't have social media, you don't have all this stuff now that you use to grow your audience and grow your following. But I literally remember sitting in art class growing up and the art teacher was always talking about like famous artists, and the same thing for like all of them, or the majority of them, was that they like weren't well known during their lifetime.
Yeah, they're always well known after they're dead, and they always were depressed and all these horrible things about the whole tortured life, So I can see why you don't want to be an artist. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that I like don't want to be an artist, but for me, like seeing my dad being an entrepreneur, I was like, oh, this is what I see and like what makes sense for me. And then my talent, or like my creativity, I guess I should say, came second to that. It just became like it's not a crutch. That's not the right word, but that's like my strength that I like use.
Right. See, this is already getting so confusing. My brain is already getting fried of being like, am I an entrepreneur or am I an artist? I don't know.
Well, I think we're both like interchangeably both. Like we are both for sure. Yes. I would love to think of myself as more of an artist, but Cami, I love some of your notes about like your being an artist is like a unique selling point for you. And I want you to talk about that.
Okay. So I totally, like if someone was like, are you an artist or an entrepreneur? I would definitely identify more as an artist. That is what I tell people. I'm like, I'm a watercolor artist when I introduce myself. Because that's my unique selling point. Like being an entrepreneur to me, it just kind of comes with the territory of being an artist. Like my entire business is basically founded on the ability to be able to paint. It's like that is literally what my business is founded on. So that is why it comes first and foremost for me. My business is not founded on the fact that, I created an invoice or whatever. I mean, that's how entrepreneurs do. You know what I mean?
That's all we do, guys. All day we create invoices.
We just invoice the crap out of people. But yeah, I think if it wasn't so personal to me, like if I sold raincoats or brushes at Walgreens or
oh my gosh.
I know, throwback.
Gotta bring the Walgreens hairbrush back.
It's full circle. Listen to the other episodes, guys. Then I would, if I sold things that weren't so personal to me, I would identify more with the entrepreneur side of things, like building up a business, like, oh, we're going to sell these awesome hairbrushes. Let's build this business up. But since I'm like creating and selling the artwork that is so personal to me, it's almost like a piece of my soul, as crazy as that sounds. I'm so attached to it. So it becomes more of an artist definition. But I don't think you can be just an artist and not be an entrepreneur if you are going to be successful. So
right, because then you end up being an artist who does not become well known.
Yeah, you are just creating art for art's sake, which is totally fine, and people do that all the time, and it's awesome. But like, if you're really trying to make a business out of it, then you do need to have that entrepreneurial spirit as well. I just butchered that word, but it's totally cool. But I would definitely introduce myself as a watercolor artist instead of an entrepreneur, like if I was at a party or something. So
I do have to ask you a question, and yes, I'll probably confuse you even more. Right. But when's the last time you created art just for you?
Oh my gosh, I never create art just for me.
Gotcha.
Ever. Actually, you know what? The floral thing I did when I just did floral paintings, that was kind of for me, but I still ended up selling it. Like the end goal is like, oh yeah, this is something I'm doing, but the end goal is still to sell it, I guess. So
yeah, I think that's how our brains work. Like, I don't think you can help it.
Yeah, like there would be never something I would create and then be like, I'm just going to hang this up and I'm never going to sell it at all. Like, I cannot do that.
Right. So, well, and you also like, you don't sell originals. That's not part of like your business structure. I don't think I've ever seen you sell an original.
I actually do sell them, but I don't like list them on my website. But I do have people email me and say, is the original of this for sale? Or, and I usually actually send the originals to my dad's gallery because the audience there is much more likely to buy an original than someone online. Because I don't know, they totally get it there. They're old people who collect art, so they want the original piece. But yeah, definitely my dad being an artist and always introducing himself as an artist, and he was very well respected in our community. People knew who he was, so it almost seemed like he was famous to me. And so the word artist just has this really awesome feeling for me. So I love like falling into his footsteps and also being an artist. So I'm always going to have that, little attachment to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wished that I could say I like identified as an artist more. I don't know. It's so interesting for me to be able to like create something beautiful but not like necessarily consider myself an artist.
Would
I don't
you
know. It's so
consider
funny.
yourself like more of a calligrapher or designer rather than an entrepreneur? Like maybe it's just the word itself. Maybe artist isn't the right word.
Yeah, I would actually agree with
Or
that.
like
I don't
stationer.
think maybe artist isn't the right word for me. I think I do introduce myself as a calligrapher. I definitely use that word.
Yeah.
But on top of those skills, it's like, yeah, I can do, like, I do watercolor too, or I do line drawing too, or I do this and
Right.
that. But I think for me, like, yeah, stationer or calligrapher really encompasses sometimes what I feel like is incorporated in an invitation, like a venue illustration or a pet portrait. Like that's part of being a stationer in my mind, because that's not true for other people. You know, there's a lot of stationers that outsource illustrations or get them from Creative Market, or they get their fonts, you know, from Adobe. They're not using calligraphy. So I guess like, yeah, calligrapher would be a better way for me to describe myself.
Right. I mean, you're just not going to go around and be like, I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I don't think. I mean, some people do that. And honestly, I have like the weirdest thing about people introducing themselves as an entrepreneur.
Yes, that's so funny. Talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Like it's so icky and weirded out when people say, I'm an entrepreneur. Because everyone, like in my mind, that's just code for you're unemployed right now. And I am just so judgy. I'm so sorry, you guys. But most of the time, these people who say they're an entrepreneur really aren't doing anything. Like I'm not just pulling this out of my butt right now trying to come up with a comparison, but most of the time they say I'm an entrepreneur and they really aren't doing anything. So I guess I have like a little bit of lack of respect for that word sometimes. Or yes. Their Instagram bios are like entrepreneur and it's like all caps and the
right, because like what does that like word really mean? Like it means so many different things.
Right. I just feel like there's a lot of guys who go to clubs in Miami who call themselves entrepreneurs. And
well, that's why I love all these other like versions of that word, like creativepreneur or fempreneur, solopreneur.
Makes me so happy. Yes. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like entrepreneur, isn't there a show called that? Or did I make that up? I don't know. Yeah, entrepreneur can sometimes just have this like icky thing attached to it for me. And I do not know why. I'm so sorry if you call yourself an entrepreneur, guys.
Well, like culturally, I think we see that show up a lot in like different movies and TV shows where there's like a character who's like, I'm an entrepreneur, but they're really like a lowlife who doesn't, you know, have anything like going on in their life. So I can see exactly where
like a drug dealer in the movie.
Oh my God.
Guys, this episode's so weird already.
So weird already. But yeah, Cami and I were having really long conversations about this, and we were like, we should just turn this into a podcast episode. It might not be as long as some of our other ones, but it's definitely interesting to talk about, because all of this comes down to like, how are you going to introduce yourself to someone when they ask you what you do?
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, I think we should do a whole nother episode about your elevator speech, but I literally would never introduce myself as an entrepreneur. I'm always going to say I'm a watercolor artist. I'm a stationery designer, like all of those things, or a small business owner. I always, because you said you had a negative connotation of the word artist, right? Like, well,
not even negative, but I think of it as like, I don't think of artists necessarily as like successful, because I immediately think of older famous artists who have already passed, right? But if we're talking in like the modern era, like Emily Jeffords, Britt Bass, Bryn Casey, you know, a lot of these like well-known artists that have grown a huge social media presence. Like I think very positively of the word artist when it comes to like them. But growing up as a kid and like what I bring, you know, with like my background, like my dad did not have any, you know, sort of like artistic thing going on in any of his businesses. That was like just always my like viewpoint of it.
I know. And I mean, honestly, there is the phrase starving artist is around for a reason. So people automatically assume when you say, oh, I'm an artist, that you aren't making any money. You're not. And like Alex and I, my husband, I always joke that when I introduce myself as an artist, people always think that I'm just making arts and crafts and hot gluing stuff together all day. And then he's like, they have no idea. And I'm like, I know.
Well, you said Alex once like introduced you the best. What did he say? Remind me.
I don't even remember what he says. He says something different pretty much every time, but he introduces me the best because he always says it with such confidence and like, he's like, oh, my wife, she has her own business. She's a small business owner and she just does blah, 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 blah. But when you say small business owner or like she owns her own company, people just automatically respect you more for some reason.
Yeah.
Than artist, it just, everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. What's your business? Versus if you're an artist, they're like, oh, that's so quaint.
Right.
You know?
Like
it's very interesting.
Mine usually comes in some form of like, I create wedding invitations, like, or luxury wedding invitations for brides, and I own my own business. Like, I normally always throw that in there of like, yeah. Or sometimes I'll be like, I'm self-employed. I work from home. I create wedding invitations. That sounds a lot more like people are like, what? Like when I say it that way. But yeah, a lot of times I do tell people though that I work from home. I don't know what they think of me when I tell them that, but
yeah, don't you think self-employed sounds better than I work from home?
Yeah, it does. Saying you're self-employed sounds much better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so funny how people just will like instantly have like an idea of what you do just based on what word you say when you introduce yourself.
Words are super important. That's, I feel like why the value of like a copywriter is so important, right? I mean, Cami and I have never actually hired a copywriter, but words are so important.
Yeah, I literally introduce myself a different way every single time. Like sometimes I just say I'm an artist. Sometimes I say I design wedding invitations. Sometimes I say I have a product line for retail and wholesale. Sometimes I say I just do pet portraits. Like literally, I don't know. I say something different all the time.
Well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to, right? Because if you're out and about and you meet somebody and you strike up a conversation and that person has a dog, then of course you're going to say, I paint pet portraits.
Totally work that into the conversation. Or if it's like a younger girl who's like, you know, probably engaged or something, I would say, oh yeah, I design custom wedding invitations. They're all done with custom watercolor. Like, so I don't know. It definitely depends on the audience. Usually a guy, I would say like, I'm a small business owner. I own my own business because I think guys respect that. And like wedding invitations does not register with them for some reason.
No,
so
it does not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny. But how do you think, so like you consider yourself more an entrepreneur. I consider myself more of an artist. How do you think this like affects the way you approach your business strategies?
I would say it has a big effect on like the product side for me. Because for you, like your products are totally centralized around like these beautiful, you know, illustrations that you're creating. I have only done a couple different like attempts at products throughout my time being full-time.
Right.
And most of them have not gone very well. Like I tried to like introduce some like cute paper notepads to my site because I was like, this makes sense.
I had that.
I know you do. I hand them out to people all the time and they love them, but like nobody bought them online. So I don't know what I did wrong, or if it just like wasn't the right time or it didn't fit with my business right or what it was.
Products are hard. Okay, well they are hard.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so hard. And so what I ended up doing for my products was I have a like partnership with a company called Get Marked Co. and they create wax seal stamps. And so I partnered with them because I made my own line of wax seal stamp designs. So I have 12 of them now. And yeah, I designed those. I'm like the artist behind those, right?
Yes.
But then there's like a company who's like taking care of like a big part of it for me. And in that way, in my mind, as an entrepreneur, it makes a lot of sense because I'm like, they do most of the legwork. I still take home like half of the money that I make. I just need to be like the voice. I just need to market this to my audience. So in that way, I think of myself more as of like, oh, I'm marketing these products. I'm the entrepreneur behind it. I'm getting the word out there. And like, very seldom do I think like, oh, I'm an artist that like created this design. Like I did it because I like wanted a product that made sense for my business that would bring in money, not because it was like I wanted to create some like beautiful like wax seal designs. And I actually almost even said no to that. That's a story for a different time that we're going to talk about. But yeah, so for me, I think the biggest difference is in products. And you can talk a little bit about your products too.
I know. And I think I don't think you should be ashamed to say like you were motivated by money with that, because I could kind of tell in your voice you're like motivated by money. But like legit, I mean, guys, it is okay to be motivated by money. I mean, like why else are you starting a business? I mean, obviously you want to help people and create beautiful things and all these other good things, but if you don't make money, then you don't get to do any of that. So don't be ashamed about that. But this is a funny story, a little segue about being motivated by money. So so when customers used to always ask my dad what his inspiration was for all his beautiful artwork, he would get like, tell him the story and get really into it and be like, well, when I wake up in the morning, I just look outside at the trees and I walk to my mailbox, and they're always like, yeah. And he's like, and I get an envelope in it, and they're like, what is it? And he's like, and it says bill on it, and I am so inspired to paint. Everyone's like, what? This funniest story that he's like motivated by his bills. But my dad's artwork is like next level, you guys. But anyway, I always get a kick out of that story, and it totally goes into like the entrepreneurial mindset. Like, yeah, I'm an artist, but I'm also here to make money and turn this into a business. So
yeah.
I like that approach. But.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that, because you're right. I feel like I got all like weird there.
I know. I think people do get weird. Like it's almost like taboo to say I'm motivated by money, but
who isn't? We all have to make a living. I feel like you're lying. If you say I feel like you're lying.
You're totally lying. I feel like you can be motivated by money and not be greedy. I think that's what people think. They're like, oh, I'm going to be perceived as greedy.
Right.
But no, you're totally not. And I think maybe the word entrepreneur kind of encompasses that idea of being motivated by money a little bit better than artist. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's like why you are drawn to that, because you're like, no, I'm a boss lady. Okay. I'm an entrepreneur. Right. I'm here to make money and dollars. Okay.
Yeah, so like I'm here to make a living. I'll get paid for it. Like I think so much too, like the word artist for me gets associated with not being paid correctly.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is like a huge stigma with that. So yeah, that makes sense.
Or art just like not being valued. Like people don't want to pay a lot for it. Even me, I'll look at price points for like an original painting from an artist, and I'm like, eek, I don't know. Like I don't know if I would pay for that.
Even me, and I am an artist. Like I look at, I keep talking about my dad in this episode, but it's fine.
No,
I look at his,
it's fine. Yeah,
and I'm like, holy crap, who the heck would pay that?
Right,
but like he sells them all the time. So yeah, I mean, art is definitely in the eye of the beholder, and what people value is totally up to them. So you can't put your own perspective on people. But yeah, gosh, now we are all over the map with artist versus entrepreneur.
I mean, it's okay. I still think we're talking about some things that are really valuable, and I still want you to touch on like your product line and how being an artist has specifically shaped the products that you offer.
Yeah, like I think my products obviously come from, my personal things that I like, and everything is pushed by my own artwork. Like I'm not sitting here thinking of like, okay, what's the next best thing to sell? Like it really does start with what I'm inspired by first. So I think that's definitely where the artist element comes into play. Like I'm very much a stubborn artist and I do whatever I want. So like even on like Instagram polls, when I'll ask people like what product line they like better or something, even if they pick one that's like maybe the audience picks something that is not the one that I would have picked, I still go with my options. So that's probably not a good entrepreneurial decision, but it's definitely very much an artist mindset. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my artwork definitely drives every aspect of my business, and especially with like custom invitations. Like I think that is the number one selling proposition for me is like, this is custom artwork. Like you are getting completely custom illustrations, and that is my moneymaker essentially. So being an artist is, I don't know, the number one thing for me, really.
I think you have to throw in there too, because I know a lot about like your processes on the back end that designer takes a huge hand in that, because you kind of have like a little illustration library, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah. But you know what's so funny? I always say to when I get frustrated when I'm doing a design, I'm always like, I am an artist, not a designer. I say that in my head all the time.
No way. Like, that's hilarious.
Yes. When I'm like doing invitations and like I hate the layout, I'm like, it's because I'm an artist, not a designer. Like
it's like your Tim Gunn point. Designers. Yeah. Make it work.
Yeah. Exactly. So so I get really like snooty in my head about being an artist and not a designer, but at the end of the day I also am a designer, and yeah, I have an entire artwork library that I build designs from. So
I remember watching you in Photoshop and sitting there like, oh my gosh, this girl is a Photoshop queen. I was like, how did you do that? You're like, what are you talking about? Like sitting there like, like doing all these like little things in Photoshop, like nobody's business.
Yeah, but I still don't feel like a designer. Maybe I'm just a Photoshop artist, but I'm not, guys. I don't Photoshop my work. That's not what I'm trying to say. But
we have Photoshopped your work. That's another tangent for another time. But
yeah, so like the crest I create and whatnot, I will bring in artwork I've already done and create something new from it. But yeah, still, I don't know.
I was specifically referencing the piece of artwork that I Photoshopped for you.
Oh, yeah, that was rough. That was a rough time. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, Elisabeth had to fix, I say fix loosely.
Yeah.
But, and a painting I did that the horse's head was turned one way and someone didn't like it, so we had to get it fixed, turned the other way. But I could not do it because even though I can do it Photoshop wise, I couldn't do it personally because I was so attached to the painting, and I was like emotionally attached because I had done this beautiful artwork, and I was like, I can't change it. I don't want to. I love the way I did it. So Elisabeth had to do it for me. That's what friends are for, you guys. They force it. So, yeah.
I know. I still feel like that's like one of those like legendary stories within like our circle of like stationary friends.
The horse story. Everyone knows the horse story.
Our own version of The Godfather, essentially.
Oh my gosh, I know. But yeah, so I am so intrigued to hear what other people will say, whether they think they are an artist or an entrepreneur and what they identify with more. I think this would be really interesting to put on Instagram as a poll, don't you think?
Definitely. When this episode gets released, we'll make sure that there's a post that day where everyone can discuss.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, I think that's it for this one. Do we have anything else we want to add about being an artist versus entrepreneur? I definitely still feel like I am artist. Even after this conversation, I was a little confused this morning, but I'm definitely leaning towards identifying more as an artist.
Yeah, I still feel like an entrepreneur. But it gives me a good understanding of like why I do think that way. And to be okay with like being motivated by money.
Yeah, I'd be totally okay with that. Oh, you know what? Real quick. And I also think it's funny, like even in our business together, I totally see how you are the entrepreneur and I'm the artist. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, in the task that we take on, like this just now occurred to me. Like it actually makes so much sense. Yeah, because you're like putting together all the structure and how to like we're gonna market stuff, and I'm coming up with like crazy ideas of like the content and the middle of stuff. So
I totally
you put the structure in place,
my
the framework.
Formal education, like my degree is in communication, so all that like the marketing side of that stuff, I feel like I love. We might have to do an episode too about just like how we work together, guys. We're really lucky. Cami and I work together very well. I don't think I don't think it should be this easy.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
I know. It's so true. It's because you're the entrepreneur and I'm the artist and we don't clash. See, it all works out.
I know. We do have like different approaches. I don't know. It's like the perfect balance, the yin and yang.
Totally.
Well, in terms of housekeeping, we do like taking your guys' questions. We know you always have different questions about business, about the things that Cami and I do on a daily basis. So if you want to submit a question to us, we do little mini-sodes called Q and Cake, and you can go to bizbirthdaybash.com/ the letter Q, the word and the word cake. So Q and Cake to submit your questions. And occasionally we post Instagram posts as well to gather new questions. So if you have anything that you want to learn from us and potentially have us talk about, then definitely go to that place on the website.
Yes. Submit your questions so we can answer them on the air at the Biz Bash podcast. And then, of course, we always want you to leave us a review and subscribe so you can hear from us every 2 weeks. Yeah,
right now it's bi-weekly, guys, every single Tuesday. So every other Tuesday. Wow. I said bi-weekly and then said every Tuesday.
All right, we gotta go.
We gotta go, guys. But we will see you next time. Thanks for joining.